It all started in the beginning of 2018 when I proposed to Amanda. We're still not married, but that's going to be, at some point in the future. It's coming. Just hang tight. But during that summer, we also moved into a new apartment. And that is the current apartment that we are living in right now. And for those of you that are wondering what the price is for our apartment, the appliances that we have, I think you say appliances, right? When you have like electricity and, heating and all that stuff. Like the total that we pay every month is $1,200. And it's not an apartment that we own. It's a rental place. That is also including 2 parking spots in a garage that's like right next to the apartment building. Now, if you're living in the United States, then this might not be a lot of money for you. But here in Sweden, it is, I would say that it's probably a little bit more than a third of my income after taxes. And as you probably know, if you've been following around here on the channel for quite some time, I quit my job in the beginning of 2019. Now, in hindsight, this is one of the best decisions that I made, but it's also one of the worst decisions. Why, you might ask? Well, when I quit my job, I did not have anything planned. Like I didn't have any saved up money. I didn't have anything to rely on except for my freelance gigs within the photo and film sort of like industry and the contacts that I've built up over the course of several years. Amanda was pregnant and I quit my job. And when you're just starting out your business, one of the downsides is that here in Sweden, you usually start as sole proprietor. And when you quit your job to become a sole proprietor full time, you also don't get any salary from your business. It's more so that all the income that you make as a sole proprietor is counted as your income, but you don't have a monthly salary that you're paying yourself every month with sort of like, salaries. We call it lön, SPS here in Sweden. And even though you're able to, make the same amount of money as if you were to have an LLC, one of the downsides is that the bank doesn't see it that way. And as I was working as a sole proprietor throughout the year of 2019, Alex arrived in May and everything became way more stressful because we didn't have a lot of money at all. Like there was nothing that we could afford extra above the rent and the cars and all of the bills that we had to pay. And that was we barely made it. Amanda was on parental leave and I just worked my ass off. So we started to talk about how we wanted to move out of the apartment, right? And towards the end of 2019, I still hadn't made enough money to be able to, have a sustainable income. Luckily enough, the poker B-roll happened. And I also got some traction with this YouTube channel, which made everything possible in a different way. However, though, I was still working as a sole proprietor. And that is something that I did up until the year of 2021. So fast forward to 2021, we went to the bank and I wanted to take some money for a loan. Some of you probably heard this story already, but for those of you that haven't, the bank said no. Like you can't take a loan because you don't have a steady income. And mind you, like I had a good amount of money coming in to me as a sole proprietor, but the banking system did not accept that as sort of like a steady income and steady paycheck. So I started up my LLC in 2021 and got employed by my LLC instead of being a sole proprietor. Now, the benefit of being employed is that here in Sweden, it looks great on paper, right? But it's also kind of a weird thing because when I went to the bank a year after this, like towards the fall of 2022, they said, well, you haven't worked in this place for that long. And I'm like, well, it's my business. I'm running this thing, so I know the money that comes in and out. And they were like, well, what happens if your business fails? And I'm like, well, what happens if I were to get fired from a job? And they didn't have a good answer to that. And it was kind of funny because I had worked my ass off to be able to be in a position where I could actually go to the bank and say, hey, we would love to get a loan for the house. But it was barely, mainly because Amanda is still working 75%, which is great because then she can spend more time with Alex. But I also have to work more in order to cover up for those expenses. After a lot of dabbling back and forth, we finally managed to get the loan and purchase the property. And the total cost for the entire property, the groundwork, the building of the house, and the actual material to build a house, we had to pay $472,000 in total. That's it. And the total size of the house is going to be 140 square meters, which is nice because then we're going to have everything sort of like covered. There's going to be some extra rooms, and it's going to be almost 3 times the size of the current apartment that we're living in, which is sick. But in order to be able to get this loan, we also need to have 15% of down payment in cash. And that was around, I think, $82,000, somewhere around that, which we didn't have, because that's a lot of money to scrape up. Luckily enough, I started my company as an LLC, as I mentioned earlier, which allowed us to actually pay dividends to ourselves. And Amanda has a holding company. I have a holding company that owns my company, which means that the profit in PL Creative can be split to both holding companies. And this was sort of like a nice way for us to actually be able to get out more money from the company and use them to pay for the house. And ever since that point where we actually signed the papers and owned the property and took out the loan, it has been a slow process ever since. But I have been doing some work on my own in order to save a lot of the money that we otherwise would need to invest. So I went down together with my dad, chopped down a couple of trees on the property. I also did a lot of work in the computer to make sure that the lot or the property looked the way that we wanted it to look once the house was done, so that the builders and the constructors and ground workers had all the things that we wanted to do on paper before they actually did it. And this is something that I highly recommend you do if you are about to buy a house. Do as much planning as you possibly can, because it's going to be way cheaper to do all of these things when the machines is in place than if you are done with the house and want to do all those things afterwards. And one of the things that I did do was ask for the price of actually blasting the hole for a pool and to make a concrete slab in the bottom of it. I also asked them to prepare plumbing for the garage and then make sure that we have plumbing for an extra house in the future as well. And the total cost for that, once the machines were in place, would be somewhere around $3,000. And if you were to do this while the house is there, you would pay a lot more, mainly because you have to bring the explosives back, you have to blast the hole for a pool, since our house is sitting on sort of like a mountainous ground, I guess you can say rocky ground, or up on a hill. I also wanted to have a garage on the property in order to be able to move this studio into my garage and be able to work sort of like from home and have a space where I can go without having to commute 35 minutes to this space every single day, one way. And I think that the garage was around $30,000 in total, which is actually not that bad because it's a 50 square meter garage, which is the same size as our current apartment. But that was also all we could afford. So everything interior in the garage, that is up to me. Luckily enough, the contractors are doing the house and finishing that up so we can actually live there. And then I just have to focus on the garage. I just wanted to give you an update on how things came to be and a little bit of the costs and the backstories of things. I'm going to finish up the garage during the Christmas holidays, I guess, and sometime into the next year as well. There's going to be a lot of work. I'm probably going to update you on the progress. If there's anything else that you want to know about the house and the build and all that stuff, do drop a comment down below and I'm going to try to answer that in the next video. But I am incredibly hyped to be able to go through this process, and also incredibly grateful for all the 600,000 of you that has been clicking subscribe on this channel. And again, none of this would be possible without you, because I can put in the work, I can do all the things that I can control, but without your support, watching my videos, coming back to the channel, being here, just enjoying my content, I'd never keep on doing this. So thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for making this possible. And really hope that I can keep providing entertainment for you in the new year as well. I love you. Thanks for being here. Peter from Sweden saying goodbye.